طيب السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وأرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه وأدخلنا برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين آمين يا رب العالمين. Welcome everybody to day 4 of our halqa series, Fiqh of Financial Transactions. We took a 2-week break, and inshallah today we'll be continuing where we left off. طبعا it's a good idea now to do some muraja of what we did last time. If you remember last time تحدثنا أو تكلمنا عن تفريق الصفقة, right? مسائل تفريق الصفقة, and that's basically when we have multiple transactions or multiple items in a transaction. Okay, what's the problem with that? Nothing wrong with that, but what if one of them is invalid? Okay, so our first question: what is the ruling of selling a permissible item and an impermissible item in the same transaction? What is the ruling? So the transaction will be fine, but we just take out the impermissible one. Sahih? Okay, good. Now, example: a seller sells wine and fruit in the same transaction. I'm selling you wine and some peaches for $20. Okay, so what do we do here? Is this a valid transaction? So we need to figure out the prices. So the transaction is valid for the fruit. Okay, all we have to do is just remove the wine. طبعا we have to know the prices. Okay, so let's say the wine is 15 and the fruit is 5, then the transaction is valid for $5 for the fruit. واضح? We talked about that last time, right? Selling something permissible, something, or selling something that you own and something that you don't own, similar. Okay, طيب. In these cases, does the buyer have to accept the transaction? Usually, when we have a transaction, the buyer, right? Once it's done and they've left the place, he has to accept it. Okay? But in this case, we said there's an exception here. Does he have to accept it? Because here, it's not what he technically wanted originally. Does that make sense? We said last time that in this case, he has the option of accepting or accepting the halal part, the fruits, for example. We said fruits and wine. So here, Islamically, the wine has to be removed and the transaction is valid. Okay? But he has the choice of just saying, no, you know what, I don't want any of them. Okay? Naam? Yeah, but then the seller told him, I can't sell you. He found out it's haram. So then he said, okay, well, I can't sell it to you. I can only sell you this one. Or later he found out, مثلا, let's say he got them both, and later he found out that one of them is invalid. Forget wine. Let's say, like for Muslims, you sold me your car and your friend's car. That's what I wanted. Okay. Later your friend's like, whoa, I didn't give you permission. So we go to the judge, and the judge says you have to return that car, your friend's car. Okay. So now I have the choice actually of returning both cars. Do you understand? I don't have to. So I have, because initially I was like, I wanted the two together. So now I have the option of keeping the halal, the rightly sold car, which is your car. Okay. Or I can just return both of them. واضح? Cool. So that was the whole point of that question. But what happens if we cannot distinguish the price of each item? So if I'm selling you, if you sold me your car and your friend's car for $50,000, okay, and I gave the $50,000, then your friend says, you know what, I didn't give you permission, I want my car back. Islamically, I have to bring it back. But what if I say, well, I want your car at least, and you're like, well, we don't really know a price. I just sold them as a bundle, right? It's not always 50-50. It's a 2025 Honda Civic and a 1982, some car that barely works. If we're not able to distinguish the price, then the whole transaction, because we have gharar here, right? We have ambiguity, right? طيب. Is it permissible for a person who must pray Jum'ah to buy a car after the second call of Jum'ah was made? You want to buy a car? You were looking at cars, tamam? And you went to the guy's house on Thursday and you liked it, and you said, "Khalas, hold it for me. I'm gonna buy it from you tomorrow." And so tomorrow he calls you. He's like, "Listen, either you buy it right now," and it's like the adhan of Jum'ah. You buy it right now, or I'm gonna sell it to somebody else. طيب. What are you gonna do right now? Is it halal for you to buy it? أحسنت. So if you remember what we said, ولا يصح ليس صحيح أصلا. Okay, where is it? So I don't misquote here the مؤلف. Yeah, هيا هنا. Yeah, ولا يصح. Yeah, so actually it's not even valid. Yeah, ولا يصح بلا حاجة. It won't be valid أصلا, right? And the person is sinful, right? Because of the ayah, يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة فاسعوا وذروا البيع. This is nahi from bay'a, but it's not sahih aslan, right? And so if he went to buy it, it would not be sahih, يعني it would not be accepted, right? And for those of you who kind of forgot what we talked about, when we talk about rulings, ahkam, we have ahkam taklifiyya wa ahkam wad'iyya. Anybody remember the difference? Sa'ad, do you remember the difference? We have rulings taklifiyya lil-mukallaf, for the person who is responsible, you and I. Mukallaf, okay? Baligh aqil, okay? Someone who's mature and sane. So we give him a ruling. We say this is wajib, this is mustahab, this is mubah, this is makruh, this is haram. 5 rulings. هذه هي الأحكام التكليفية. But we also have أحكام وضعية. Ahkam that kind of give you things like it's valid, it's invalid. Okay, this is a condition or not a condition, right? So the hukum of this is a condition, مثلا. Or the hukum of this is that this is invalid, batil, or this is sahih, right? So here it's saying that ولا يصح, يعني it's batil. It's not going to be a valid transaction. It's doing tahrim. نعم. So for this one, let me see if I have the hadith right here in front of me. Yeah, because here he says, إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع والنهي يقتضي الفساد. In most cases, not always. النهي يقتضي الفساد. يعني when there's a nahi on something, that means that the what's being prohibited is invalid as well, if it has something to do with sahih or batil. Not every hukum has that dimension, but this is the ruling. النهي يقتضي الفساد. Yeah. والله أعلم. طيب, the next question. Jamil, we're still in the review. What is the ruling of selling your car to someone who will be using it to sell and deliver alcohol? Practical question. Okay, someone wants to buy your car, and you know they're going to use it he's a delivery driver to deliver alcohol. You know, he told you, right? Is it permissible to sell the car? لا, anybody says yes? Everybody agree? Ijma'? طيب, yeah, that's right. You're not supposed to, right? Because remember we said, we had a ruling last time, we said that, or a qa'ida, a maxim, that whatever is going to be used in haram, it's not allowed to be sold. So if it's something haram, then it's going to be used in haram anyways, okay, because it's haram, so obviously that's, but if something mubah, right, like a car is mubah, it's permissible to sell a car, but if you know that person for sure is going to use it in haram, then you're not allowed to use it. Just like he mentioned in the book, he said, and it's not allowed to sell weapons in the time of fitna. Yani weapons to the opposing side, or weapons to somebody who's going to hurt the Muslims. Tamam? That would be something impermissible. طيب. We have an example here. A buyer and a seller have finalized the deal, And then a third party, this is about the whole part about buying on top of your brother, or selling on top of your brother, or haggling on top of your brother, right? We mentioned three things 3 weeks ago. So here we have the question, a buyer and a seller have finalized the deal, okay? And then a third party comes in during the session and offers the seller to buy the same product at a higher price. You sold me your car, okay, for $10,000. We agreed, okay, we agreed. Then somebody comes and says, Sa'ad comes and says, whoa, $10,000? I really want the car, I'll give you 12. The seller, this is a better deal, right? Is he allowed to say, Hamza, you know what, I don't want, I want the other one, okay? So here we said it's not permissible and it's batil, okay? Haram wa batil, okay? Except if I allow it, okay? Except if I say, and we're going to talk about this concept of iqala. Anybody heard of this word before, iqala? Iqala in business transactions is when you pardon. Okay? So, if we have a transaction together, okay, then inshallah, in the next 2 weeks, we're going to talk about al-khiyar, the options. When we have a transaction, you have options to return. Okay? If that option is gone, now it's binding. Khalas. You sold me your car, I gave you the money, there's nothing wrong with it, we left the premise, now it's binding. What if now you have some regret? Well, if you come to me and you say, you know, I regret it, and are you okay with returning my money and returning the car, and you know, I found out this was a gift from whatever, yani. As long as both of them agree, then it's allowed. And this is something that is sunnah actually, and is something recommended. Yeah. This is the only reason why it would be okay. Otherwise, you're not allowed to, right? And we said the same thing, buying on top of your brother, selling on top of your brother. And then the last one we said, as-sawm, haggling. What's haggling? It's right before the transaction is finalized. So you're like, I'll sell you the car for 10,000. You know, I'll be like, okay, are you willing to do 9,000? You're like 9,500. Oh, 9,250. And then this guy comes in and he said, man, don't waste your time. I'll give it to you for 10,000. You know, I'll take it for 10,000. Right? So it's still in the haggling process. Is this act halal? No, it's not halal. Okay? It's haram, but the transaction will be binding. It will be a valid transaction. Why this is different from the other ones? Okay? They said because this is the opinion of the Hanabala, yani. In the first one, the tahrim came that the Muslim should not sell or buy on top of his brother. The actual sale is made haram. وَالنَّهِي يَقْتَضِي الْفَسَادِ. Okay? But in the second one, sawm, it says sawm is not allowed. The actual haggling, not the actual transaction. It's a very technical point. I think there's a difference of opinion in the other madhahib, right? That is also invalid, right? Here the Hanabala are saying it's valid, but it's haram. The person is sinful. Why? Because you just bothered a guy. He was trying to get a deal, right? And you know. Now this is problematic when the buyers are not in the same place. Do you understand what I mean? Like when you sell something on Facebook Market. Yeah, who sold something on Facebook Market? Anybody? Everybody, right? Have you sold something? Yeah. When you're the seller, you're getting, you know, the text message, you know, is this still available, right? Is it still available? And then this guy offers you something, and then this guy offers something else. Is this haggling? Like, it's different, right? It's different because you are not offering on top of somebody else that you know is there. This, what we're talking about here is when you're in front of each other, but when you're online and nobody sees anybody, it's the seller's choice to what? To decide on the best price. Does that make sense? Because the whole point of making it haram is that you don't want to upset. A lot of the ahkam in transactions, in financial transactions, is so you don't upset, try to reduce problems, jealousy, disputes. That's the whole reason, right? And so imagine you're trying to get a deal and somebody jumps in front of you and says, oh, I'll pay the whole price. Don't waste your time. How would you feel about that guy? He just took your deal. So you'd be very upset, right? So this is what the Sharia is trying to prevent. طيب, Jamil, nice, 20-minute review. طيب, our next part is, we're going to talk about الشروط في البيع. طيب, in the beginning of the chapter, we talked about شروط البيع, the conditions for the transaction to be valid. So for a transaction to be valid, it had 9 conditions. We're not talking about that now. We're talking about conditions that are put into the transaction. Okay? So it's going to be broken up in 2 categories, and 2 for each kind. So we have valid shurut, conditions, and we have invalid conditions. Okay? So we have valid conditions, invalid conditions. Under the valid conditions, we have 2 types. Okay? We have conditions. So we have, conditions in the contract. We have valid and we have invalid. In the valid, we have conditions that are part of the crux of the contract. Okay? What does that mean? يعني, it's part of the actual sale. You're trying to solidify the sale or make it safer, or like, for example, someone who puts collateral. Okay? مثلا, you want to sell me your car, we're going to keep selling that car. by the end of the lecture, you're going to sell me your car. So you want to sell me your car, and then I'm like, listen, I can't pay you cash right now full, but I'll pay you in 3-month installments. Is this okay? Is okay? Is this okay? Yeah, it's okay, right? طيب. But you say, you know what, but I want some collateral, some rahan, So I don't know, like, what if you just don't pay me? So I'll be like, oh, khalas, take my old iPhone. Okay, it's worth like whatever, $1,000. And this is a condition we put in it helps the actual contract, okay? It's not some extra benefit, okay? So this is what it means, like, that it's part of the actual transaction. The second kind of valid condition is a benefit that you put. A benefit that you put. What does that mean? Yani, I'll tell you, we're going to stay with the car. I'll sell you the car with the condition that you let me drive it for 1 more week. Okay? Sure. Okay, it's valid, no problem. Okay, or مثلا, let's stick with that example. And then we have invalid, okay, conditions. Okay? So we have invalid conditions that invalidate the whole contract, and we have invalid conditions that don't invalidate the whole contract. We just drop the condition and the contract's still fine. Does that make sense? مثلا, somebody says to you, I will sell you the car. You tell me, I'm going to sell you the car, if you loan me $5,000. So here you're putting a contract with another contract, it's not allowed. Okay? You're putting 2 transactions together, it's not allowed. Okay? And because even if we made, and I'll tell you why it's going to invalidate the whole contract. Because you're telling me, I'm going to sell you the car for $10,000 with the condition that you lend me $5,000, a loan. Okay? So now you have 2 things in one, right? You might say, okay, khalas, we'll just take off the loan and we'll make the contract valid. Sah? You might say that. We say no, the Hanabila, they say no, because the price of the car is 10,000 plus the benefit of the loan. That's the real price. Sah? Does that make sense? The price he wants to sell it for is the 10,000 plus the benefit of a loan. Does that make sense? So if we remove that loan, then the price went down now. Does that make sense? So that's why they wouldn't invalidate it. But in the other type, that's an invalid condition, but it keeps the contract valid. Like if someone says to you, if you say to me, I'll sell you the car for 10,000 with the condition that you don't drive it to the southeast. I don't like the southeast, so you're not allowed to drive it there. Okay? I'll be like, sure man, I know my fiqh, and I know that condition will be invalid aslan. But the contract will stay valid. Why? Because when you sell me something, part, يعني they say من مقتضى العقد, يعني from the understanding of a contract is al-milkiyya, is possession, right? When you sell me the car, I have possession of it, right? Do I have the right to do whatever I want? Yeah, that's part of the contract. Okay? So when you tell me you can't drive it to the southeast, this is going against that. You're not allowed to put that condition. You can't sell me your phone and say, but with the condition that you don't call after 10. It's not your business. It's my phone. Does that make sense? So even if the sale goes ahead with that condition, the condition doesn't count. Islamically, it doesn't count. Okay? كيف يعني a business? Explain to me.
Let's say a coffee shop.
You have a coffee shop, okay.
So now you are expanding, you want to open another coffee shop, and then like franchise or something like this. Now you want to open another place. They won't allow that because you're going to create competition, for example, with someone else. Stuff like that.
Those are conditions to sell in that area. مثلا. I don't think it's the same thing here. Like, what's the transaction here that's happening?
Is the business.
So someone has a business, a franchise.
Franchise, for example.
Okay.
You can only take this area. You cannot go do activity in other places. Let's say a plumber.
A plumber, okay.
Yeah, this is the area that you can cover. You cannot go, for example, in those houses or you don't accept calls from those areas, stuff like this.
So you make a contract with who? Yani with the city or with the...
Would the future is the person who will do that business say, okay, this is the area that you can work on.
So you're saying مثلا someone he's working مثلا as a plumber and he's only allowed to work in
Using the name of that business in that area.
for this specific business. But who gave you this condition?
The person who owns the company.
Franchise,
Mhm.
when you buy franchise of business,
Mhm.
including the territory, so it comes with a condition that you
Yes.
can only be in here.
Yeah, but like, I mean, you don't control that. صح?
That's what I'm saying. Like the car is clear, but now the business where you want to say, I just run this business, but only this area, don't go other places.
Allahu alam. I'm not sure. That's an interesting question. Because as a franchise, because we have to go back to the basis of the contract. When you buy a franchise, are you allowed to? Do you have full freedom to sell to whoever?
They give you an area, so this is
Mhm.
only area.
And by law, like you're only allowed to sell in that area.
Because they have
Well, why am I asking is because we would have to go back to the muqtada al-aqd. Okay, what's the basis of a franchise contract, yani? And if that's part of the understanding in the law, yani, that مثلا someone's only allowed to do مثلا from this time to this time, or from this place to this area, this location, then that's part of the actual contract. It's not something that he's adding to it, okay? It could be that it's valid, if that makes sense. But if it's something extra that he's taking from your right as a franchise owner,
yeah, this is common in franchise.
yeah. So we have to go back to the default contract, okay, and all the benefits that come with it, and then see if he's actually denying you some of your actual original rights. When we say original rights, like a normal sale, is that you own it, is that you can use it however you like. طبعا when we say however you like, as long as it doesn't go against the law, right? Or it doesn't harm anybody else. That's understood, obviously, right? You don't have full freedom to do whatever, right? Yani, when you get your first driver license, you're like, you can't really drive all the time, right? I think there's like curfews and stuff. So these are things binded with the law. So that's a bit different. So if it's something binded by the law, then that's something that has to be followed. Allahu a'lam. Right? There's a lot of factors that we're talking about the default here in basic contracts, that you cannot add something that takes away from your basic rights of ownership or keeping it or using it. Tamam. Al-asl. But if there's some other binding laws from the land or the government or the constituency or whatever it is, then that will have to be taken into consideration. Let's read. طيب. So he says here, فصل في الشروط في البيع. والشروط في البيع ضربان. He said, and the conditions in the sale, in the transactions, are two kinds. صحيح, okay, and then we said also that there's fasid, صحيح and fasid. Okay, so he says الصحيح, the binding ones and the correct ones, كشرط رهن وضمان وتأجيل. So he gives the example like رهن, collateral. Okay, like we gave the example of giving something as collateral or ضامن, a guarantor, right? مثلا you sell me your car and I'll be like, I'll pay you next week. Be like, no, I don't know you, I don't trust you. Like, no, I'll have a guarantor. Brother Afzal, you know him very well. You guys are friends. He'll write his name and his credit card. If I don't pay, he's gonna pay it. Okay, that's a guarantor, right? It's okay to put that condition in the contract because it helps the actual contract. وتأجيل, right? Delaying the payment. That's okay. You're allowed to do that. Okay, as long as it's not something to do with riba. We'll talk about that later. وتأجيل ثمن. وكشرط بائع نفعا معلوما. Yeah, and then this is the second kind. وكشرط بائع نفعا معلوما في مبيع كسكن الدار شهرا ومشتر نفع بائع كحمل حطب أو تكسيره. So remember we said we have valid and invalid. In the valid, there's the first kind that helps the actual crux of the contract, and then a benefit. Okay, he says, or a benefit for the seller or the buyer. Okay, كشرط بائع نفعا معلوما. It has to be known. I can't be like with the condition that I give you a benefit that is unknown. That's not allowed. Remember, anything that's unknown, the Sharia frowns upon. So it has to be نفعا معلوما, a known benefit. في مبيع, okay, كسكن الدار شهرا. Yeah, like for example, I tell you, I'll sell you my house. I was gonna sell it to you for 650,000, but I'll sell it to you for 649,000 if you let me live, just with the condition that I stay in it for 10 more days. مثلا. That's valid. That's a benefit, and both the buyer and the seller benefit from it. كسكن الدار شهرا ومشتر نفع بائع كحمل حطب أو تكسيره. Yeah, like for example, you're selling me some wood, okay? I'll be like, I'll buy the wood from you as long as you deliver it to my house. The same thing you go when you buy furniture, right? Nowadays they charge you, right? But you can, if you buy furniture, be like, I'll buy it for this price as long as you guys deliver it for me for free. Like, okay, sure, whatever, okay? Or he says, for example, or if you're selling me wood, as long as you cut it up for me. Okay? You're gonna sell me some firewood, you just cut up your tree, and it's like in big blocks. I'll buy it for this price as long as you chop it up for me. Like, yeah, okay, sure. So this is a manfa'a, okay, in the contract. This is fine. This is a condition that is fine. Remember, these are conditions. You're putting it in the contract. Okay? And then he says, وَإِن جَمَعَ بَيْنَ شَرْطَيْنِ بَطَلَ الْبَيْعِ. This is something that we find in the Hanbali madhab, is that they say if he has two conditions, then the transaction is not valid. They don't allow two benefits. So if you tell me مثلا, if you sell, I'll buy the furniture from you guys with the condition that you deliver and you set it up, or what do they call it? Assemble, yeah? Thank you. And you assemble. You deliver and you assemble. Tamam? This is two conditions. Okay? The Hanabila here say no, batil. Why they say batil? There's a hadith that says لا يحل سلف وبيع ولا شرطان في بيع. Okay? Now there's a long, huge debate about this in the books of hadith actually, about what does it mean shartani fi bay', okay? And you see the other madhab, they will say, and actually we have another opinion in the madhab that says that no, you're allowed to have two benefits in the contract, okay? So remember now, we talked about valid conditions. We have the one that you make a condition that goes back to the crux of the contract. This one you can put as many. You could put rahan and guarantor, whatever. But the second one that has benefits, here the author of this book, who's a Hanbali, he says more than one benefit is not allowed. But the other opinion in the madhab will allow you to have more than one benefit. Wallahu alam, that seems like it is the stronger opinion. Wallahu alam. طيب, and then he says وفاسد. طيب, and then he talks about al-fasid. Let's see what we have here. So this chapter deals with conditions that the two contracting parties put on each other in order to move forward with the sale. There are two types of conditions that can be placed in the contract. So remember, we said we have valid and we have invalid. In the valid ones, okay. and by the way, and I like to do this. I read the Arabic, explain it, and then go through the English. So we go over it twice. It helps stick into the brain because fiqh is very, very complicated. Or it could be sometimes complicated and dry. Type. So we have here, from the valid ones, the conditions could be the type that benefit the contract. Yeah. The ones that benefit the contract, we said like collateral or a guarantor or delaying the payments, installments. That's part of the contract. Number two, another type of valid condition could be the type that contains a known benefit in the sale for either of the two contracting parties. We said like, for example, you deliver and you assemble, okay? طيب. And then we have fasid, invalid, okay? Invalid and invalidates the contract, and it's invalid and it does not invalidate the contract. So he says here, وفاسد, the second kind, يبطله. So the first kind of fasid is the invalid that invalidates the contract. This is the one here, okay? وفاسد يبطله كشرط. Now he's giving an example. كشرط عقد آخر من قرض أو وغيره, okay? Like he says, if you want to sell me the car, and then you say with the condition that you give me a loan, okay? You give me a loan for my house or something like that. They say here this is not valid, okay? أو, I just want to read a quick footnote. Yeah. أو, he says here, أو ما يعلق البيع كبعتك إن جئتني بكذا أو رضي زيد. Yeah, it's like if you make it conditional. Like, I'll sell you the car if the flames win. Okay, I'll sell you the car if tomorrow is sunny. I'll sell you the car if Brother Afzal agrees. Like, these, he says these are not valid. Okay, فاسد يبطل العقد. It makes the contract invalid. It makes the contract invalid. And then he says وفاسد لا يبطله. It doesn't invalidate the contract. Like what? كشرط ألا خسارة. Like someone says to you, I'll sell you this as long as I don't lose in this transaction. Okay? Or we'll do this like business together as long as I don't lose. Okay? This is not something allowed because this is not your right. Yani, part of business is that you accept the profit and the loss. Okay? But this would not be allowed. كشرط ألا خسارة. But it doesn't invalidate the contract. We said you accept the deal and you know that it's not actually valid. أو متى نفق وإلا رده. Yeah. So he says here, let's go through the invalid ones. Bismillah. Well, let's go through the valid quickly. He says, so the valid conditions. The conditions could be the type that benefit the contract. We said that. Adding collateral or a guarantor for delayed payment. For this type, you can have multiple conditions. Jameel. Good. We cleared that. The second kind of valid condition. The condition could be the type that contains a known benefit in the sale for either of the two contracting parties. Could be from the seller's side. For example, I will sell you this house, provided I live in it for a month, after which I will hand it over to you for good. That's valid, no problem. It's a benefit. Could be from the buyer's side. I will buy this firewood from you, provided you cut it for me. Okay? طيب, no problem. if the conditional benefit in the sale is unknown, then the condition is invalid. Yeah, the benefit has to be known. The conditional benefit has to be known. The exact benefit must be known so that the parties are clear on the terms and there are no surprises, otherwise it leads to conflict. Right? This is what the Sharia is trying to avoid. However, you cannot add multiple conditions in the contract for this type. If you do, it will invalidate the contract. Scholars differ over this, if this is allowed or not, but the official position of the Hanbali school is that you can only add one such type of condition because it leads to more arguments, disagreements, and conflicts. Yani that's why I told you, yani other madhahib will disagree with this one. Okay, wallahu alam. Yani it looks like the more practiced position is that you can put multiple conditions, right? That's why it would be valid for you to have someone deliver and assemble for you, bi'idhnillah. Because does that cause? Because their illah here, their ta'leel, is that it causes more arguments. Does that cause more arguments? No, as long as the seller agrees to deliver and assemble, it's not causing problems, right? Actually, for him, it's a way to get you to buy it, right? It's a sales tactic. Type invalid conditions. The first type invalidates the whole contract. So it's an invalid condition that invalidates the whole contract. This is the type where you do a contract with the condition of doing another contract along with it. Okay, and this is what that hadith I mentioned. لا يحل سلف وبيع ولا شرطان في بيع. Some of the scholars say this hadith talks about this one. Do you understand? It doesn't talk about the one we talked about before. It talks about this one, that you cannot put another contract in it. It's not talking about benefits in a contract. Do you understand where the khilaf comes from? This is just an FYI. يعني. So they say that hadith لا يحل سلف ولا بيع ولا شرطان في بيع. They're talking about this one, like putting another contract in a contract. This is not allowed. So here he says, the type where you do a contract with the condition of doing another contract with it. This other contract could be related to a loan, rent, or sale. Like the same thing we said, I'll sell you the car if you sell me your car. Okay? No, just do it two separate transactions. Don't make them part of the same transaction. So example, I will sell you this car with the condition that I also borrow from you 100,000. I will sell you this house with the condition you let me rent it out to others. Okay? I will sell you this commodity with the condition that you sell me such and such commodity in return. Right? So you're putting two contracts into one. Tamam? It's better to have them two separate contracts, and that it will be valid.
What about the amount? Like they say, I will sell you this if you buy two of them.
Say it again.
Let's say you want to sell cars, but only you want to sell both of them. So I will sell you this if you buy both of them.
Yeah, here you're selling. This is a safqa, like it's allowed to do that. Okay, this is one contract. Okay, this is one contract. You're saying I'm going to sell you these two cars for 40,000.
I will sell you this car if you buy the other one.
No, this is a condition. Okay, here I will say no. I just want this car. Okay, but
Amount, sometimes if you are dealing with the manufacturer, they say, okay, you only can buy this amount of product. We cannot go below that.
that's for a specific price. The manufacturer will tell you if you want the unit for $1, you need to buy minimum 500 units, مثلا, صح? Because of scales of economy. Huh?
Even though you don't go for you, so you have to buy this amount and this price.
Yeah, because that's how much he will sell it for that price, or that's how many units you have to buy from him for that price. Otherwise, he'll sell it to you for a higher price, right? That's fine. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about like saying, the manufacturer says to you, I will sell you these units, okay, for this price, as long as you use my delivery service as well. Like you also deliver it and you pay for my delivery service, right? That's a separate condition, okay? And that's a separate contract. That's a delivery contract and this is a sales contract. You shouldn't mix them together. Does that make sense? This is what it's talking about. Type that suspends the sale until a particular condition is met, sometime in the future. Yeah, like this is the second type we said, where somebody says to you, conditional. I will sell you with the condition. So I will sell you this commodity if Fatima comes to the store. You can't do that. I will sell you this commodity if Zaid comes to my house. I will sell you this car if so and so brings a bag of food, right? These are not. The only ta'liq that you're allowed to do, if you say, مثلا, I'll sell you this, inshallah. This is a condition, but it's a valid condition because everything happens with the mashia of Allah, right? So you're allowed to do that. I'll sell you this car, inshallah. This is a condition. But if you say insha'a Zayd, no, not allowed. Inshallah, that's allowed because it is a condition. Inshallah, if Allah wills. If Allah doesn't will, I'm not gonna sell to you, right? Right? That's pretty clear. طيب. Jamil. Yeah, the second type of invalid, this is the one that does not invalidate the whole contract. So putting a type of condition where you will not be subject to any sort of loss. Okay, so for example, this is not allowed because once you take ownership of a commodity, then the responsibility of its profit loss is on you, not another. We mentioned before, like someone tells you, as long as I don't lose, right? Or I don't profit. No, this is part of the sale, or this is part of the commodity, okay? I can't sell you the house and be like, I'll sell it to you for this price as long as it never goes up. If it goes up, you have to return me the money, right? You're not allowed to do that because once you sell something, you have full ownership. You're going to take the profit and the loss. Tamam? I'll answer your question. Just one second, Muhammad. Example, I will buy this commodity from you with the condition that if I resell it for a loss, then you will pay me the difference. No, you're not allowed to do that, okay? Because khalas, now you have to accept the loss and the profit. Also includes things like putting a condition that if you are unable to sell the product or when its demand in the market dies, then you will return it. No, you can't do that. مثلا, you talk to the manufacturer, you're like, I'll buy these 1,000 units of mugs, okay, with the condition that if the demand goes down, I return them to you. You can't do that. Tamam? This is what he's talking about. These are not valid conditions. Okay, because once you buy something, you're responsible for it. Okay? You cannot go back to the seller and be like, khalas, the demand went down, or whatever it is. Okay? Does that make sense? تفضل محمد. تفضل. Yeah, they're selling you a set. Yeah, that's fine. It's not two separate contracts. Like they're not telling you, it's not like a sale plus a loan. Okay? Like they're not saying, I'll sell you this as long as you loan me $500 for a month. This is, we talked about in the beginning, when you have a safqa, when you have a few things being sold together. Like we say, I'm selling you my car and my friend's car. We said this is not allowed not because I'm selling two things, but because I don't have permission I can't sell something that I don't own. But if I own like laptop, book, water bottle, and I'll be like, I'll sell you these three for $2,200. Okay? That's what I'm selling you. This is allowed. You will say, well, I just want the laptop. Okay? Then if we agree on a price, we can separate the prices. And I'll be like, okay, sure, I'll give you the laptop for, $2,100. The book in the water is $100. Then that's fine. That makes sense? Okay? The last thing here, it says, seller puts in a condition that he will not be liable for any unknown problems. Yeah, you're also not allowed for that. Right? Okay, so for example, seller puts in a condition that he will not be liable for any unknown problems that may arise with the commodity. Example, I will sell you this car with the condition that if any problems arise, then I'm not responsible. Okay? So, you can't do that, right? He says, however, if the seller points out the problems to the buyer beforehand, and the latter still chooses to move forward with the sale, then the seller is not responsible. واضح؟ يعني أنا I'm selling you, when I'm selling you, you sell me your car, and there's a problem. You say, okay, you know what? I don't know. You say the right mirror doesn't turn. You can't turn it with or the window doesn't work. The remote on the window. This is a common problem, right? The button doesn't work. Okay, and you tell me the aib, and you say I'm not responsible for the window after the sale, but you already told me, and I accept it. Okay, then this is fine. But if there's a problem and he doesn't tell it, and he says, I'm selling you this with the condition that I'm not responsible for any problems. Does that make sense? This is not allowed. طبعا here, yeah, here يعني it's ghish, it's cheating. يعني I'm selling you, and this happens in selling cars all the time, right? Every seller on the market, they'll tell you this is 100% works, like brand new. Okay, 2 weeks in, he knows there's the clutch has a problem, or he knows that the gear has a problem, and the mechanic told him, listen, sell it, I'll fix it for you, just on the surface, but sell it before so you can get the full price. And you sell it, and you don't tell him there's a problem, and you say, I'm selling you this with the condition that I'm not liable. Why is this important? Because we're going to go to khiyar in the next week. From the reasons to return a sale is that if there's a aib, khiyar al-aib, right? And so if you sell me your car and I find a aib tomorrow, a aib meaning a deficiency, okay, then I have the right, if I can show that this was not from me, then I have the right to get my money back. Does that make sense? But here he's putting a condition. He's like, I know there's a aib, I'm not telling you. I know there's a deficiency, I'm not telling you. And I'm going to put a condition in the contract, a binding condition, that I'm going to sell you this car with the condition that I'm not liable for any deficiency in it after this date. Okay, you can't do that because, right? There could be something that was your fault and you didn't tell me, right?
What about the That's why
You just don't put this contract. You don't put this condition.
you bought and inspected, for example, the car. As I know, it's very good. There's no problem with it. Go, bring the inspector, mechanical, whatever you want. But if you figure out something later on, I'm not responsible for it. This is I'm clear that I don't know something else.
Wallahu alam, this might change the ruling. And if someone, in this case, like a car, like you do a full inspection. Here, if something does happen, who's liable? The inspector guy or the inspection place, or nobody?
Inspection
Hmm? It's on the buyer, huh? Yeah, because maybe the inspection guy is a friend of the of the seller. Yeah. I think they see this condition as problematic, right? To free yourself from any, but you are free from any defects that are not your fault, right? And usually the buyer cannot really prove it unless he has clear proof. It's very hard to prove that it was the seller's fault, right? That's why there's always risk in buying secondhand, etc. And that's why a lot of when you buy new, you get warranties and whatever. And some of these companies that give you warranties, right? Because they know there's going to be deficiencies. Even new cars, how many times do you have recalls? New cars, they're like, oh, we have a recall. Tamam? That's what should happen. And if a car company sold you a car and told you, I'm selling you this Toyota with the condition that anything that breaks is not my responsibility, would you buy the car? You probably wouldn't. And so the whole point of this, of making this condition not allowed, is because it's going to create problems. Because now the buyer is now having doubts. Whoa, why are you telling me this? Right? Like, why are you telling me that I'm not liable for any problems? Right? Yeah, and the inspection goes on the buyer usually, not the seller. صح? Usually the inspection. Yeah. Wallahu alam, and it's one of those interesting masail. طيب. 55, huh? Okay. طيب, we were supposed to go into khiyar, so I'm going to skip that. We're going to go quickly into the measured contracts. These are very, very quick, inshallah. We'll finish it very quickly. طيب. He says here, وَإِنْ شَرَطَ no, that's not where we are. Yeah, وَإِنْ شَرَطَ الْبَرَاءَةَ أَلَّا yeah. مِنْ كُلِّ عَيْبٍ مَجْهُولٍ لَمْ يَبْرَأ. Yeah, he's not free of that. This is the condition that we said. If he makes a condition that I am free from any deficiency, then he's not free. طيب. So here we're going to talk about things that are measured, right? Like, for example, something that is sold by volume, okay? Something that is sold by weight or by measurement or by count, okay? Just specific rulings for those. So he says here, وَمَنِ اشْتَرَى مَكِيلًا وَنَحْوِهِ لزم بالعقد. Okay, whoever buys makil from kale is something that is volume. Okay, kale is something that is volume. Okay, so he says whoever من اشترى مكيلا ونحوه anything that is similar to it, like موزون. Okay, there's 4 kinds. We have al-makil volume, موزون something that has weight, وزن, معدود something that is عدد, counted, and al-madhru'. What's madhru'? Anybody know? Huh? No, madhru' is أحسنت. الذراع is a measurement. Yeah? Yeah. So a measurement. Something that like thobes and stuff like that. Something that is measured, okay? Or like copper, you're selling like a meter of copper or 2 meters of plywood or whatever, okay? This is something that is measured in length, meters, inches. فهي, he says لزم بالعقد. خلاص, now it's binding. ولم يصح تصرفه فيه قبل قبل قبضه. So here he says that, and you cannot go ahead and sell it until you actually القبض is what's قبض? Huh? Receive? No, there's a better word. Huh? Until you own it? Yeah, I guess until the possession. That's the word. That's the better word. Yeah. Al-qabd is possession. Until you have possession. Yeah. Two in a row, mashallah. Yeah. So he says here. So you're not. So what's he saying? He's like, if I buy like مثلا something that is by volume, I'm not allowed to مثلا resell it until I take possession. Okay? Because there's a hadith about that. The Prophet ﷺ talked about food, right? You're not allowed to مثلا resell something until you possess it. Okay? For reasons, and they did qiyas on that. They did analogy on the other things. Okay? It says so until you actually have possession. وَيَحْصُلُ قَبْضُ. Now he's going to say, how do you actually take possession? What's considered possession? Now they're going to talk about like the olden days. Now we would just have to make analogies nowadays. What's considered possession? Okay? وَيَحْصُلُ قَبْضُ مَا بِيعَ بِكَيْلٍ وَنَحْوِهِ بِذَلِكَ. Yeah. He says the possession of something that is volume or similar to it, okay? It's by weighing it and actually paying for it. That's it. Now it's been weighed, it's yours. Now you can do, and you take it, now you can do whatever you want. مع حضور مشتر نعم مع حضور مشتر أو نائبه. So as long as there's the buyer and the seller or a representative, okay? It says here وَوِعَاؤُهُ كَيَدِهِ. Yeah, or if he brings like a container, it's like he took it physically with his hand. Like if I say مثلا I send a truck that's gonna grab and take possession, it's the same as I took it with my own hand. Okay? وِعَائِهِ كَيَدِهِ. Okay? وَصَبْرَةٍ وَمَنْقُولٍ بِنَقْلٍ. A subra is like a large amount. Okay? Or something that is that has to be transferred is by transferring it. Okay, so as long as it's transferred to you, that is possession. Okay, وَمَا يَتَنَاوَلْ بِتَنَاوُلِهِ. And whatever is like actually given, actually physically given, by actually giving it, then that is counted as possession. وَغَيْرُهُ بِتَخْلِيَةٍ. وَغَيْرُهُ بِتَخْلِيَةٍ. He's talking about like, what about a house? When do I actually take possession of a house? They say by actually the seller leaving the house. Okay. That's when you actually take possession of the house. So if you say I'm going to sell you the house and you're still in it and your stuff's still in it, I can't resell it until you leave and you take your stuff out. This is what he's talking about, okay? So you can't resell it until at-takhliya happens, until the person actually leaves. وَالْإِقَالَةُ فَسْخٌ تُسَنُّ لِلنَّادِمِ. وَالْإِقَالَةُ. We talked about iqala. We said iqala is when you pardon someone, okay? When you make a transaction, you sold me your car, you know, I'm loving the car, okay? And then the next day you're like, man, I really missed that car. You come back, you're like, Hamza, can I take my car back? There's no reason, there's no aib, I didn't cheat him, but he's like, you know, I didn't. I can say no, tough luck, buddy. Or I can say, you know what, khalas, you know, fi sabilillah. And whoever does that, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, من أقال مسلما بيعته أقال الله عثرته يوم القيامة. Al-athra is like a slip or a mistake. So whoever pardons a sale, okay, and he returns it because the other person wants it, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will pardon one of his slips or mistakes on the day of judgment. And there's a lot of reward for that, and so that's why they say it's something that is sunnah. Okay.
Reverse the whole transaction?
So from a fiqh point of view, it's not a resale, it's a cancellation. هذا فسخ.
The money will go back to
Yeah. So because here in the footnotes he'll tell you 4 conditions, as long as it's the same items. Okay. Because this is not a resale. Let me explain. He sold me the car, and he's like, "Can I have it back?" I'm not reselling the car.
the same deal. Yeah.
I'm not reselling the car to him for the same price. I'm just canceling the original contract. Because reselling has repercussions, right? Has other rulings with it, right? So, from a fiqh point of view, from a legal point of view, I'm not reselling the car. I'm just canceling the original transaction. Does that make sense?
No price negotiation.
Yeah, you cannot increase. So you cannot increase or decrease to be like, oh, you really want the car? Okay, well, add another 1,000.
They just offer me 5,000 more.
Yeah, no, that's not allowed. That doesn't count as iqala. That would be like me reselling it to you, and that's allowed Islamically. If now he wants to buy it for a higher price, whatever.
It's going to cost me more.
Yeah, that's halal as long as he agrees. Naam. Let me just quickly read this, and inshallah we'll do the adhan. So this chapter deals with the rules related to the commodities sold and the measurement. It is particularly speaking about the following types of measurements, right? Things sold based on weight, based on number per piece, ma'dud, and sold based on measurement, madru', right? Like fabric, okay? And then we said, whoever purchases something in measurement, the contract for it is valid, and the ownership transfers to the buyer. The ownership is there, but you don't have tasarruf. So you have milkiyya, but you don't have tasarruf yet until you possess it. Does that make sense? When you do the contract. So, however, the buyer cannot do whatever he likes before possession of it. So, example, he cannot sell it, rent it, or do anything else with it until he has received all of it in his possession. Okay, you have to have possession. If he does something before possession, then it would be batil, invalid. You cannot do that; it would be invalid. How to take possession? We said it should be weighed, measured, counted in the presence of the buyer or his representative before possession. If the buyer wants to take it with him in his own container, then that should be present as well. Once the buyer or his representative see it weighed, measured, counted yani, and put into the container, it is considered possessed. Khalas, now it's in your possession. It's considered possessed. You can resell it. You can rent it. Buyer can also use his hand as a container if it is possible for him to do so. This is to assure that it is measured, weighed, counted properly, and is complete so that there is no dispute. Do you understand what the Sharia is trying to do? Because later you're going to be like, oh, no, I actually meant to get these kind. Because these weighted and measured things, they're different, right? They can be unique. But if you're buying like apples, you're like, no, I wanted bigger apples. So that's why you can't sell it until you take possession, you see it, you actually counted it yourself, and you have possession. That's the hikmah behind this. This is to assure that and is complete so that there is no dispute. If it's a large pile of food or animals, then such things will be considered possessed once they are transported. Yeah, so if I buy like 40 cattle from you, I can't resell them until I have possession of them. Either I take them to my farm, or I send a cart or a trailer and it puts them into it, and khalas, now it's in my possession. Tamam? If the commodity consists of small items, then they will be considered possessed once they are handed over to the buyer in the hand. Yeah, like jewelry. I buy jewelry, something that is ma'dud or weighed, right? مثلا this many grams of gold. It's mine, but I can't resell it until I have possession. And that's, how do you possess gold? By taking it, okay? Nowadays, someone's going to ask, well, what if it's put in a safe that I pay for, مثلا? If that's considered possession, then that will be possession. Yani nowadays. Because nowadays, we have more ways of possession, right? If that's considered possession, urfan, by the community, then that would be considered possession. And the last thing, if the commodity is a type of item that cannot be moved, then it is considered possessed once the seller evacuates. Yani a house, it's not like he's going to put it in your pocket, okay, or deliver it to you. You take ownership once the person leaves, or land, once he leaves and he removes his stuff. The last thing is iqala. What if one of them wants to cancel the contract after it becomes binding? After it becomes binding, why is this important? Because if you sell me your car right now, you have the choice of returning it before we leave the masjid. This is called khiyar al-majlis. We're going to talk about it next week. So he says after you leave the masjid, I leave the masjid, there's no reason to return. Now, if you feel bad and you want to return it, then this is called iqala, and it's allowed, as long as both parties agree. Okay, and the one who actually allows it, he gets the reward. We said he gets the reward on the Day of Judgment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive one of his slips. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. That's what we wanted to cover today. And inshallah next week we have Muslim Heritage Day, so we won't have a halqa. Next week is Muslim Heritage Day. It'll be going on the whole day inshallah at Cowboys Park. But the week after we'll start talking about al-khiyar, options. Okay, when you have a transaction, do you have options to return it, and what are the reasons to do that? That will be next time inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.